Hello, 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 hello. Bine ați venit, dragi telespectatori, la un nou videoclip de reacție, pentru că noi astăzi facem și un videoclip de reacție, al doilea videoclip de reacție, 2. Da? Al doilea videoclip pe ziua de astăzi, da? Deci ca să vedeți voi counter cum pot să rezist eu după night shift din ăsta de căcat în pula mea, da? Bun, astăzi avem un videoclip mișto, da, de la Living Ironically in Europe. Da, Romanian TV was insane. Deci pregătiți-vă, oameni buni, pregătiți-vă pentru toți ăștia care nu sunteți OG în pula mea și sunteți încă weak spermi, la modul ăla not great god în momentul de față, să vedeți voi ce era brain rot cu adevărat înainte de brain rot-ul cu schibiditoile și cu toate tărăfișele astea, să-ți miști copii pe lângă ce era când eram eu mic. Hai de pula mea. No, hai să vedem despre ce este vorba.
TV, a technological milestone in entertainment and information, the invention of which made the world a much more comfortable and better informed place.
Normal.
Television is truly a staple in humanity's ingenuity and technological advancement. And although television has impacted every culture significantly in some manner, one way or another, arguably its influence had the greatest effect in Romania. Although television was available in Romania since 1956, the use of the technology was very limited. When the magic picture box arrived in the country, the nation was very much impoverished and under a totalitarian communist regime, which made the availability and use of it very limited. The technology picked up traction relatively in the late 60s and was limited to only 2 channels. Televiziune Română was one of the first channels and the main one used throughout the years. Up until the 80s, it broadcasted on average 14 hours a day and had a variety of programming. However, in the 80s, due to the country implementing insane policies to pay off its international debt, its broadcasting was limited to only 2 to 3 hours a day, starting from 7 p.m. and ending at 10. The program consisted of a news segment, which was followed by Ceausescu's report on the country's development, and if you were lucky, an Eastern Bloc produced movie. However, as you should know, in the 90s the communist regime collapsed, and with it the liberalization of the country ensued, as well as the liberalization of Romania's TV. In the years of 93 and 94, as the country underwent privatization programs, new TV channels started to appear. As the 90s progressed, small TV stations popped up, and TV became open to the public and independent stations, and programs became ever so prevalent. They produced their own original programming, news, imported pirated movies from the West, the Dallas American TV series, specialized TV stations for music such as Atomic TV, which broadcasted local and international music, and everything and anything in between, which made the 90s Romania TV, although primitive, very diverse. However, in the 2000s, one of Romania's most infamous and influential TV stations was born, Oglinda TV, meaning Mirror TV, or just OTV for short. The station was launched by a Romanian media veteran, Dan Diaconescu, who set up a studio in his apartment in Bucharest. Its main show was Dan
Romiț TV, uite de
which
asta nu
was a
știam.
makeshift talk show with extremely amateur production value. We're talking about production levels that would make porn seem like Hollywood. The show became infamous as it would bring on guests that consisted of so-called spiritual mediums, Manele singers, and 2-bit gangsters. Essentially guys he'd find around his block that would sell sniffing glue and low-quality amphetamines. Because the country was impoverished and the technology available in Romania was limited, a lot of the programming that ran on OTV from 2000 to 2004 became lost media. In 2002, OTV was shut down by the government due to its trashy program violating the broadcast law at the time. However, Diaconescu claimed that this was a politically motivated attack on him and his station.
Fun fact, eu l-am văzut pe Dan Diaconescu în realitate. Eu l-am văzut la cinema, chiar l-am văzut.
After a 2-year imposed sabbatical in 2004, Diaconescu and OTV came back in full force. The studio was refurbished and the broadcast got a new and shiny overlay with not 1, not 2, but 3 news stickers, 1 at the top and 2 at the bottom, which will display breaking news to the public, which consisted of sensational titles to draw the attention of viewers. As in tradition at this point, the words incredible, sensational, and extraordinary were often used by Diaconescu himself, which accompanied any breaking news in the tickers, even if those news were that Diaconescu
Ia, stați așa. Credeți că serviciul secret a pus la cale dispariția produselor Dell? Evenimentul zilei. 5 români visează să fie politicieni în Italia. Ia auzi, bă, băiatule, incredibilă dispariția produselor Dell. Ofițer de informație rupe tăcerea.
News in the tickers, even if those news were that Diaconescu went to take a piss. The TV style of the show was also mocked continuously by other
Această femeie
TV
susține
shows such as Animat Planet Show and early
Da.
Romanian internet memes.
Da.
In its second rendition, OTV's main programming used to run the conspiracy of
A
the day
venit
and
trimisul
Guests of the
Domnului
Day
pe
style
pământ,
show.
el spune
There
că
was no
este
real connection
Iisus.
between the subject of each episode except for loose references to previous episodes. Think of it
Incredibilă
like it was
dispariția
pre-Netflix
produselor
TV,
Dell.
episodic with distinct
Da, a fost un
episodes.
mare scandal
You
la
could
vremea aia,
start
chiar a fost un
watching in the
scandal că
middle
la
of
un
the
moment dat
season without any
dispăraseră
context
brânzeturile
from the previous ones. Some of
de
the most
Laco
notable
și
episodes
Dell.
were Diaconescu following ticket inspectors of Bucharest and filming their day-to-day routine and the fights they had with
yes,
terror
Diaconescu
agents.
moment.
The investigation into the suicide of Romanian businessman Mihai Erbașu, where Diaconescu tried to recreate
Silviu
his
Prigoană
death with
prezintă
a mannequin
filmul
by
interzis
throwing it off the
pe
balcony
întreaga
of the villa. The
pula
whole point
mea.
of the recreation being that there was no possible way for Erbașu to fall onto his head and kill himself, which then transitioned into a conspiracy theory that he was murdered. Then there was the episode where Diaconescu, alongside a special guest, tried to convince the audience that they could predict the upcoming lottery numbers. Of course, they weren't able to, and as a result, the TV show and station received mass lawsuits from the public. Another episode followed Diaconescu in the garden of some random villager, where they started...
Vai, coaie, stai așa că eu m-am gândit la o chestie ce am putea face noi pe stream, da? Știi ce îmi trebuie? Îmi trebuie puțin ajutorul vostru, oameni buni. Dacă găsiți cumva episoade din astea la modul ăla care erau de pe OTV, în pula mea să fac stream la modul ăla, în pula mea, live action, în pula mea stream, cu astea de la OTV în pula mea, coaie, că astea sunt gemuri, coaie, n-ai cum, mă, n-ai cum să nu... Păi trebuie să ne uităm la toată istoria, frate, cu blestemul emo și cu dispariția Elodiei în pula mea, n-avem cum.
Yard only to find a dead body, which wasn't even shown on broadcast, but everyone claimed it was there. Then there was the episode where Diaconescu invited a clairvoyant onto the show who claimed he could speak with the deceased Romanian dictator, Nicolae Ceausescu. The audience was then allowed to ask him questions by sending an SMS to the show, which cost 1.2 euros per message. Then an episode...
Ai de pula mea, femeia susține că poate vorbim direct cu Elodia în pula mea.
Then there was also the legendary debate between the two hated culture subgroups, the emos and cocalars.
Ai de pula. Aoleu, ăsta cu blestemul emo, coaie! S-au luat emolei la bătaie în pula mea! Ați vrea să fie arestați toți atenții emo! Emo! Era, nu, între un emo și un manelist era treaba asta. Da, exact ce ziceam, oameni buni.
In them as ordered by the EU. They even went as far as to make a lament.
Unde ești tu, brânzădel? Mergeai cu un copănel, roșii ceapă și măsline. Îmi e așa de dor de tine.
However, by the mid-2000s, things drastically changed, as in 2007, a lawyer going by the name of Elodia Ginescu disappeared. And her disappearance became the biggest story every Romanian was talking about at the time. She was a former lawyer who disappeared on the 30th of August 2007 under mysterious circumstances. Her body was never found and she was declared dead in absentia. The main suspect was her husband, who was eventually jailed in 2013 and released in 2023 on parole. While the subject of her disappearance is worthy of its own true crime series, the CNA, aka the National Audiovisual Council of Romania, warned all TV stations to be really careful with how they approach the subject. However, OTV said f*** it and decided to do its own thing. They went with, like any
Da, trebuie să ne uităm cu aia cu la trilogia cu serialul Elodia cu aia. Trebuie cu aia și cu Delu și cu chestia aia cu emo, pula mea.
Most notably that Elodia was hiding in the Carpathian
Trebuie,
Mountains
n-ai
with Osama
cum,
bin
fratele
Laden.
meu.
Things went as far as Diaconescu bringing in a bassinet full of sulfuric acid and a cow's leg into the studio to show how Elodia was melted into pieces to dispose of the evidence. This whole telenovela
Da, mă, voi vă dați seama cât de fucked up era
240
situația aia cu aia.
And
Deci,
while every other TV
240
presenter
de
was bashing the
episoade
circus,
de
OTV was
telenovelă
producing
de-a
illegal
lui Diaconescu în
The
pula mea.
consequences of OTV's
A
programming
încercat
and their
ăla
Elodia
dracu
series became
să
far-reaching
mulgă
and became
situația
known
cu
as the
Elodia,
process that is
bro.
now called the Otivization of Romanian TV, as a vast number of stations in Romania copied OTV's methods of broadcast and trashy TV. As a result, the late 2000s broadcast was filled with flashy news stickers, sensationally clickbait titles, outright misinformation, and guests screaming at one another just to gain slightly bigger ratings. Even his most trashy programming with seemingly outrageous
Credeți că mâine va
conspiratorial and
despre
outrageous
omenirea în
segments
pula mea?
for example,
Urmează
the
o dată, în perioada aia,
made a segment covering a Moldovan
oh my
poltergeist
god,
terrorizing a
asta
village,
cu aia e
where
bun.
they showcased a door and bucket moving on their own whilst interviewing the
Vai,
local
ce
villagers.
fucked up era
Camerele
și
montate în
asta.
casă au surprins momentul în care un papuc s-a izbit violent de ușă.
After the Elodia horse was beaten to complete and utter mush, Diaconescu went back to creating new programming which continually devolved into greater and greater absurdism. This era began with OTV staging an assault on
Crimă
Diaconescu
mascată în
by bringing in
sinucidere.
someone into the studio
Prezentatoarea
who had a big
OTV,
trash can
Diana
arrested
Maloș.
Diaconescu and
Oh,
put him
nu.
into it. Then they brought in the then president, Traian Băsescu, to schmooze Diaconescu, which ended with the president holding a lottery and the winner being awarded by him with a bottle of alcohol. Diaconescu even decided to get into politics by starting his own party known as Partidul
Și-a făcut
Poporului,
în pula
the
mea și
People's Party,
Partidul
that promised to
Poporului
give
în
every
pula
child
mea.
upon turning
Încă mai
18
țin minte chestia asta.
$20,000 in cash from them. With his embarking into politics, he then renamed the channel Televiziunea Poporului, aka the People's Television, and had the staff refer to himself on broadcast as the future president of Romania. At this point of the video, I'd like to note that this wasn't some off-brand schizo channel. Rather, it was one of the most, if not the most viewed channel in Romania at the time, and OTV's shenanigans were broadcasted on national TV across the entire country. Millions of people turned in monthly to watch Diaconescu and his programming. In 2011, which is considered their peak, they had an average of 84,000 watchers per minute. An
Wow, e
entire
ceva.
middle-sized town watching OTV per minute.
Wow.
However, things soon started to change. In 2012, mass protests erupted across the country as the government proclaimed they will privatize the Romanian medical system. This scandal was followed by protests over the impeachment of the president at the time, Băsescu. OTV, not being one to let an opportunity pass, seized the moment and started calling themselves the only free station and the emergency broadcast station. As you would expect, they started spreading disinformation about railways being cut and that the protesters were asking for Diaconescu to become president. Of course, these claims weren't even remotely true, and as such, the CNA fined them to high heavens. Due to all the violations and unpaid fines, their broadcasting license was revoked in 2013, even with trials, appeals, protests, and a general circus made subsequently over the decision by Diaconescu. He tried to circumvent this by establishing a company in the holy city of the Vatican and broadcasting from there. This remained an online-only TV stream, as no actual broadcasting company would dare touch OTV with a 10-foot pole. The only TV station that ran reruns of their programming was Romania TV, another shitpost of a station that today is in the business of spreading
Aoleu,
Russian
ăsta chiar e cel mai mare
disinformation. Soon after
shitpost în
OTV
pula
was
mea.
shut down, Diaconescu was convicted of attempted blackmail of a public official and was forced to spend a few years in prison. In a desperate cling to relevancy, he also tried to buy a bankrupt chemical plant and made it his mission to save the workers of the plant. However, he did not have the money to do so, even though he brought huge trash bags full of money to the auction for the plant. Ultimately, his
Mamă,
efforts
ce
were for
de
naught,
bani.
and OTV never recovered. Diaconescu throughout the 2010s slowly but surely became irrelevant and only mentioned at parties and gatherings amongst friends in the context of holy shit, remember when this was a thing on TV? But even though OTV has become a thing of Romania's zeitgeist, it is still something that left a huge impact on the nation's media and entertainment industry, with many stations and programs implementing Diaconescu's infamous tactics. Although OTV is no longer running, their shenanigans are still talked about to this day, and the few clips that exist on YouTube from their golden days are still a subject of mockery in Romanian meme culture. Doresc să spun, dragă Diaconescu, oriunde ai fi tu, glorie eternă a Partidului Poporului Dan Diaconescu. Doamne ajută! Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video.
Da, lume, deci, cum spuneam, bă, găsiți în pula mea videoclipurile alea cu Dan Diaconescu și cu chestiile astea cu aia. Trebuie, astea sunt niște gimuri, trebuie salvate, bă, trebuie salvate, nu se poate așa ceva, mă. Deci ne trebuiesc videoclipurile alea. Trebuie cineva, frate, să fie înregistrate emisiunile alea cumva, mă, să le fi le postat undeva întreg pe episodul la ele cu aia. N-are cum, mă. Trilogia aia trebuie să o vedem, mă, în pula mea. 240 de episoade, cantere, dă-vă în pula mea că ne uităm la ele, ești prost? Păi cum, bă, păi trebuie să vedem dacă Elodia e vie, dacă nu e vie. Știi, comentăm și pe treaba asta, că trebuie să o și comentăm, știi ce zic? Sau cu blestemul emo, dar începem prima oară cu blestemul emo sau începem cu brânza de laco, cu Delu, pardon, nu de la cu Del. Să vedem cum a dispărut ea, dacă a dispărut, nu se știe. Oricum, uitați în gym-uri din astea, că astea trebuiesc de la Zero TV sau de la Oglindă TV, îmi pune mea. Nici nu știam că OTV de fapt OTV e de fapt Oglindă TV, nu aveam habar de chestia asta. Eu știam doar că se numește OTV, dar nu știam de unde provine O-ul ăla în OTV. Dar acum știm. Deci am trăit într-o minciună masivă, oameni buni. Și ne vedem data viitoare și vă spun, nu uitați. Oh, by the way, nu uitați, acolo, fain frumos, o să fie și linkul prezentabil, fain frumos, de la Twitch-ul nostru. Dacă vreți să veniți pe Twitch-ul nostru, nu am un program oarecare, dar vă recomand să dați subscribe și acolo, pentru că dacă o să vă uitați pe Twitch, sigur o să apară un stream de al meu așa, out of nowhere, ca de obicei cum fac eu, out of nowhere. Așa că ne vedem data viitoare și vă spun ceaules, baules. Mă duc să mă culc, băga mea și pula. Hihi.